The UFC is back. Magomed, Ankalaev, and Johnny Walker, the rematch is on our doorstep, and it's time for me to give my predictions and breakdown for each and every fight on this fight night card. We have a bunch of good prospects like Joshua Van. We also have some OGs like Jim Miller and a couple of highly anticipated rematches like Manel Kape versus Matheus Nicolau, as well as the main event. Guys, if you're just interested in hearing a particular take of mine on just one of these fights, make sure to check the timestamps in the description. And without further ado, let's get into the first fight on this card. Joshua Van versus Felipe Bunes. All right, now, Felipe's never fought in the UFC. He's 34 years old, 10 years older than Joshua Van, who's only 22. And Van is one of the prospects that I'm really high on, okay? 2 decision wins in the UFC, but both wins are truly impressive. And one thing that I want to mention is that a lot of these really young guys in their early 20s that are making their UFC debuts, like Felipe Dos Santos, who went to war with Manel Kape, like Joshua Van, who in his first UFC fight fought a veteran in Zhalgas Zhumagulov and was able to beat him, and in his next fight took out another guy with much more experience. One thing that I'm noticing with these guys in their early 20s is that they're so much more complete. They're so much better. And just, it's not just the fact that they're young and they have the speed and all that. Like, these guys are fighting really smart too. And they're just way better than the old class of fighters that we're used to seeing. These guys in their 30s, when they were in their 20s, the guys that we see in the UFC, nowhere near the same level of skill. Right? Joshua Van's coming into the UFC with a complete skill set, with good fight IQ, with good shot selection on the feet. In his last fight, he lost the first round, got knocked down. All right? Now, I think that that's something that could have happened to a lot of people if you take into the context that this guy that he was fighting was basically fighting in slow-mo for the first couple of minutes, and Joshua Van was outstriking him. And then all of a sudden, he explodes with the classic fast twitch flyweight ability, and he knocks Joshua Van down. Well, in the second round and the third, it's urgent for Van to win those rounds. Well, he goes out there, imposes his will, walks this guy down, Kevin Borjas, and just tees off on him with body shots, mixing it up to the body, going to the head, stuffing takedowns, getting takedowns. I believe he landed 77 significant strikes in the second round and almost 60 in the third, and almost broke the record for most body shots landed in a UFC fight, which is just insane. Again, facing a guy that has a lot more experience, I think Joshua Van is a totally complete fighter at this point. Now, of course, he's not in his prime. He's not grown into the body that he's going to have when he's in his prime too. He doesn't have a ton of power in his hands. But as far as striking skill goes, this guy has hands. He's fast. He has good takedown defense. Good shot selection. And I look at a guy like Felipe Bunes that has all of these losses, dude. If you're looking at his record, he had a stint where he lost 3 fights in a row by decision, and that was pretty recently. Dude, if you're losing 3 fights in a row by decision, okay, and you're 34, and you've been in MMA for a long time, that's indicative that, listen, man, your skill set may just not be up to par. You know what I mean? You should be winning decisions if you're UFC caliber on the early regional fights that you have. All right, then he loses to Josier Formiga, former UFC fighter, but the guy's like 38. That's old for a flyweight, man. The second win he has before his last one was a split decision. I'm not liking this at all, dude. I think Joshua Van's going to go out there, and I think he's going to beat his ass for 3 rounds or finish him, all right? You're looking at this guy, 34 years old. It's already getting up there. I think the UFC knows what they're doing here. They're setting up Joshua Van to get another win. They're probably starting to take notice that this kid is pretty good, and I think that they're giving him a layup here. So I think Joshua Van's going to get this one done. He's got the skills, and I believe he's going to go out there and shit on Felipe Bunes. So let's get on to the next fight. Up next, we got Tom Nolan versus Nikolas Motta. All right, now Nikolas Motta, let me just say it how it is. He's not that good. All right, Tom Nolan, another really young prospect in the lightweight division, and as I just said for Joshua Van, these younger guys are coming into the UFC these days, and they're complete, dude. Their skill sets are really well-rounded. They have it down, all right? The only thing that they're lacking is that experience, but when it comes to the skills, they're able to pay the bills. And Nikolas Motta, 30 years old, he's gotten knocked out a couple of times in the UFC. This guy isn't that good. He's a regular lightweight that's been signed to the UFC just to fill a space. Whereas Tom Nolan, 6'3", lightweight, 6-0 as a pro, has a finish by TKO in pretty much every single one of his pro fights on the Dana White Contender Series. Vicious KO. He has fast hands. He has a long reach. I believe that Tom Nolan is getting set up for a victory here against Nikolas Motta, who's just mid. Let's be honest. Now, I'm not saying Tom Nolan is that great. We're going to have to see him actually do work in the UFC. But if you're just looking at the trajectory, if you're looking at the frame this guy has, I believe he's probably going to have an average chin. Maybe if he has the worst chin in UFC history, he gets caught. But listen, man, this guy has every advantage in the book. And Nikolas Motta, the guy's nothing special. All right, he's nothing special. He's coming off of a KO loss. He's going to lose this fight. I'm going to go with Tom Nolan, and I'm going to pick Nolan to win this one via first round KO. Okay? He's going to go out there. He's going to put a bomb on the chin of Nikolas Motta, who's the much smaller man. He's going to knock him out. Next up, we have Farid Basharat versus Taylor Lapilus, who isn't really a known fighter. I'm not talking about Farid. You guys have probably heard of Farid Basharat. He's one of the Basharat brothers. He's been the guy that's been less active. And I'm going to just say this. Get ready for a stinker. All right, this is probably going to be a stinky decision. Farid's probably going to take down Lapilus because the Farid Basharat guys, the Basharat bros, they have pillow hands. All right, they're okay on the feet, but this guy is going to get outstruck by his Taylor Lapilus, who actually is a really solid striker. Had a great performance his last time out on the France card against Colin Logran, who's nothing to write home about. But Taylor Lapilus has really good hands. He has great counter strikes, and he's creative on the feet. He's real creative, man. He reminds me of like a poor man's Manel Kape, right? And I think he's going to go out there, outstrike Farid Basharat, but Farid Basharat is going to get a hold of him. He's going to hold on for dear life. He's going to drag him to the mat. He's going to get half guard, look to land some ground and pound shots, maybe look for submissions, but expect one of those, stinky Basharat decisions. Expect him to go the distance. Expect to be yawning. Expect to be checking the live chat if you're in my live stream while watching this fight. Expect to go to the bathroom during the round. It's not going to be that fun. And this is no disrespect to Basharat. I think the Basharat bros are real good. They're good. Their stand-up is enough to get by. It's enough to survive, okay? The ground game, they've got control. They've got it down, okay? So expect Farid Basharat to go out there, take down Taylor Lapilus, who will be outstriking him, and just to, skate by to a nice, clean victory. There's nothing else we need to say about this fight at all. I don't think that Farid is the better Basharat, bro. I think the other Basharat, Javid Basharat, is the better of the two. But that could also be because we've seen him fight a little bit more often. Either way, I'm going with Farid Basharat to win this fight via 29-28 or 30-27. Hey, maybe he goes out there and gets some kind of a ground and pound TKO or a submission. I just know he's not going to win this fight in the stand-up. So mark my words, Farid Basharat, he's not going to win this fight in the stand-up. Marcus McGhee versus Gaston Bolanos. Marcus McGhee is Sean O'Malley's training partner, if you don't know who he is. One of the guys that trains out of that MMA lab in Arizona with Mario Bautista, O'Malley, a bunch of good fighters coming out of that gym. Kyler Phillips. McGhee, in my opinion, may be the most impressive out of all of them. Not talking about O'Malley, of course, but out of all of the guys like Kyler Phillips and Mario Bautista. Now, granted, he hasn't really taken a step up in competition, and this isn't one either, but expect him to go out there and knock out Gaston Bolanos, who's coming off of a victory decision win over Aaron Phillips. This guy was in Bellator before he came to the UFC. Win one, lose one, win one, lose one. And Marcus McGhee is knocking everyone out that he fights. Wicked power in his hands, all right? Both of his UFC fights, he's knocking down his opponents left and right. He has a good submission game, all right? He had a submission in his first ever UFC fight, a knockdown coming right before the submission in his last time out. I believe he knocked down JP Buys like 3 or 4 times. And if you look at this guy's pro record, just TKO after TKO after TKO. Great cardio, fast hands. One of the most powerful dudes I've seen fighting at bantamweight. So I think he's going to go out there and get a nasty TKO over Gaston Bolanos, who is just another one of these guys coming into the UFC to fill a spot, really, okay? He's not winning this fight. This is a showcase for Marcus McGhee. I don't know if the UFC has really taken notice yet, but I guess they're not giving him a bump up in competition. Maybe they're not, because he's been running through everyone they're putting in front of him. And this is not, in my opinion, a bump up. Even though JP Buys is trash, okay? Even though JP Buys has no chin, this is not going to be a tough fight for Marcus McGhee. Marcus McGhee getting this one done by a TKO 100%. Next up, we have Mathew Semelsberger, one of the heaviest punchers in the 170-pound weight class, versus Preston Parsons. I just know that I've heard that name a million times. And there's a reason why his fights are forgettable, because he's a forgettable fighter, because he ain't good. All right? Preston Parsons has lost to Trevin Giles by decision. All right? Now, if you're losing to Trevin Giles by decision, you can't be that great, because Trevin Giles, is the typical NPC behavior on the feet, doesn't impose his will, jab, and a leg kick. Clinch, jab, and a leg kick. He's not good. All right, he's not that good. He's also gotten finished, I believe. I believe he's gotten finished by Daniel Rodriguez in the first round. And D-Rod's pretty good, but I think that Semelsberger is going to knock him out too. All right? Preston Parsons, if you don't have a granite chin, you're probably going to get dropped by Mathew Semelsberger, especially if you're not beating Trevin Giles, bro. I know Trevin Giles is a good chin, but listen, Semelsberger is going to win this fight. I know he just got finished by Arlovski, and I picked him to win that fight. Arlovski finished him in the third round. I think it was more like the cardio. That fight was at altitude. It was in Salt Lake City. I can't stand Salt Lake City because these fighters, they're just never at their best. And the results are always a little bit weird. But I'm not complaining. He got knocked out by Arlovski, but he knocked down Arlovski early in that fight. Before that, loses to Jeremiah Wells, but that was a robbery. He should have beat Jeremiah Wells. He knocked him down viciously in 2 separate rounds. Not only that, dude, he's got a win over Jake Matthews. He's gone out there and he's beaten AJ Fletcher, had a close fight with Chaos Williams, took the best punches that Chaos Williams had to offer as well. Semelsberger is pretty damn decent. He's not great, but he's got vicious power. He has a good chin. He's a big, strong welterweight. And I think that he's going to knock out Preston Parsons, or at least win a decision based on damage. Again, if you're losing to D-Rod in the first round, yeah, D-Rod's a pretty good boxer. I understand it. He may be more skilled than Semelsberger, but I think that Semelsberger could tag you and could drop you. All right, now if you're losing to Trevin Giles, to me, that's just, all right, maybe you don't have that dog in you, because Trevin Giles is not going to war with anybody, right? Trevin Giles is just picking you apart at range and floating around, not really doing a whole lot. Semelsberger will march you down. He will get off those big shots eventually. And I believe that when he lands, he's going to land a lot harder in this fight. So I got Semelsberger to win this one via TKO or decision. Next, we got Waldo Cortes-Acosta versus Andrei Arlovski, the craftsman himself. True grizzled craftsman is coming back to take Waldo Cortes-Acosta, overrated heavyweight, to a decision. Now, you heard that right. I know Cortes-Acosta is coming off of a KO over Lucas Brzezinski. I forget his name, Lucas Brzezinski. Okay? I probably butchered that. But he's coming off of a nasty KO win in Singapore. Back of the headshots, though. Now, to be fair, he did rock him early, and this guy has a long reach. He's pretty big for the heavyweight division. But make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. This guy is taking Chase Sherman to decision. This guy is taking Jared Vanderaa to decision. And he needs a back of the head shot to knock out Lucas Brzezinski. Okay? So don't try to lecture me and tell me that this guy is the real deal. He is going to be a 14-ranked heavyweight. He's going to beat Andrei Arlovski by decision. But if you look at Andrei Arlovski's style, and I know he just got finished by Don'Tale Mayes, which is not a good look. Before that, he got finished by Marcos Rogerio de Lima, who beat Waldo Cortes. Dude, Arlovski just makes it a point not to entertain a scrap, and he's just going to survive. He's good at surviving, dude. He's good at surviving. He's good at picking and poking and poking and picking at his opponents. And that seems to be his style. And the reason why he's a true grizzled craftsman is because he knows that, listen, man, I'm old. I don't have the same pop that I used to. Let me just go out there. Let me just touch these guys. Let me just pop these guys. Back out, pop them again, put the volume on them a little bit. I've got the cardio. I've got the pace. These heavyweights, they're normally not guys that are going to throw a lot of volume. And I think that the fact that he's not willing to scrap anymore is going to make it difficult for Waldo Acosta Cortes to go out there and put him away. Now, if this man is actually respectable, all right, I'm talking about Waldo Acosta. If this guy wants to be a fan favorite, like if he wants to put his name out there and get some hype, he has to go out there, march down Andrei Arlovski, bite down in the mouthpiece, and fucking slug with the 44-year-old Andrei Arlovski. Because if you don't do that, that's pathetic. If you go into a decision with Andrei Arlovski, you're never going to be a champion. That's just not possible. I'm sorry. It's not happening. Tom Aspinall went out there and finished Andrei Arlovski. All right? Francis Ngannou finished Andrei Arlovski. I'm not saying Andrei Arlovski is a walk in the park. He's pretty good for a 44-year-old, but come on, dude. You can't be taking this to a decision and expecting to be something. Like, you have to take this into account, dude, especially if you want fans, especially if you want the UFC to look at you as a serious prospect. I mean, look, they gave Marcos Rogerio de Lima a fight with Derek Lewis because he finished Andrei Arlovski. If he went out there and took him to a decision, they would have given him Muhammad Usman. Nope, they gave him Derek Lewis because he deserved that good fight. So you want to get a bump up, finish this guy or at least try. Because I'd rather see Waldo get knocked out by Andrei Arlovski than go and beat him by decision. Because that in and of itself is just going to show me that, all right, this guy is never going to be a champ. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But that's basically why this fight is interesting. Can this guy break out of the chains of being your typical NPC heavyweight by finishing someone that should be finished if the heavyweight division is anything respectable? Or will he remain your typical NPC heavyweight that just goes to a decision with an old man, okay, that's just a craftsman? Like, once again, man, like if you're fighting a 44-year-old in the heavyweight division and you're not finishing them and you have hype, that hype is unwarranted. So you better go out there and get this finish. I'm going to pick him to win by decision. All right, if he gets the finish, all right, fair enough. That'll be a good look. I think he might. And you know what? Actually, I am going to pick him by KO. It'd be pretty embarrassing for him not to finish Andrei Arlovski. Again, Arlovski actually makes it difficult to be finished. But come on, man. You have to. You're a fucking professional athlete in your early 30s. How old is Waldo Acosta Cortes? 32? 32 years old? Come on, man. If you don't finish this guy, like, you don't deserve to be in the UFC at this point. Like, this is genuinely a cry for help for Waldo Acosta. Like, you better go out there and finish him. A lot of pressure, but we'll see if he can do it. I know MMA Experts is hyping up this guy. Hey, we'll see. We'll see about that. Let's get on to the next one. Next up, Bruno Ferreira versus Phil Hawes. All right, two guys that are chinny, going at it, but I believe that Bruno Ferreira getting finished by Nursultan Ruziboyev is not as bad as Phil Hawes getting knocked out 3 times in a row. Now, he's been KO'd by Roman Dolidze, okay? Even though he was compromised and he decided to shoot a takedown on Dolidze, he got his knee messed up, and on the feet, he was just a sitting duck, all right? He got KO'd by Ikram Aleskarov, and I picked him to beat Ikram because of his takedown defense. He's got a good wrestling background. Glass chin. Gets chinned in the first round. Before that, before both of those fights, he got knocked out by Chris Curtis. Before all of those, dude, Phil Hawes was actually on a tear. He was on a tear. He beat Nasruddin Imavov. He ran through Jacob Malkoun, blitzkrieged him in the first round. This guy, he beat Kyle Dawkins. Like, he's pretty decent when it comes to his skills, when it comes to his grappling, his takedown defense. But Bruno Ferreira, man, I'm going to pick him to win this fight. Before he got knocked out by Nursultan Ruziboyev, he knocked out Gregory Rodriguez, which was an insanely clean left hook KO, or maybe a right hook KO. I kind of forget. It was on the Brazil card. Jamal Hill and Glover Teixeira. He's got a lot of pop in his hands. As a pro, before that, every single one of his wins, I believe he was 10-0, were all by finish. 8 of them brutal KOs. So I think that I'm going to trust this guy to finish Phil Hawes on the feet. Phil Hawes is probably going to be jabbing him up a little bit, probably outstriking him until he's not. And that's how I see the fight going. I think that Bruno Ferreira eventually will land one of those shots on the chin of Phil Hawes. And if you're Ferreira and you're looking at Phil Hawes' career, you kind of know at this point, all right, if I just stay safe, if I stay patient, I'm eventually going to land a clean one instead of just going tit for tat and going through a high-paced battle, because Phil Hawes also has a lot of power in his hands. He can also shoot a takedown if you're Brunno Ferreira. If you're patient, eventually you're going to land something. Okay, you're going to land something, and you're going to KO him. So I'm going to go with Brunno Ferreira. I think his path to victory is just a lot more clear-cut and dry. For Phil Hawes, you got to be perfect for a whole 15 minutes. And that's just a tough ask in front of a big puncher like Brunno Ferreira. That's a tough ask in front of anyone in the middleweight division that's not Paul Craig. All right, that's not one of these pillow punchers that you really don't have to fear at all. And even they have a chance to knock out Phil Hawes in his glass chin. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Brunno Ferreira. I'm going to say vicious first-round knockout and just a career ender in general, which sucks, man. I mean, this guy came into the UFC, was doing really well, blowing everyone out of the water, out-striking guys like Nasruddin Imavov, who is skilled, and now he's just getting knocked out left and right. This is like the typical MMA career, bro, that we don't normally think of, just because the guys that we're rooting for, the guys that we're looking forward to are all hyped up, and they're all, you know, like the 1% best fighters on the planet. But a lot of guys turn out like Phil Hawes, man. A lot of guys turn out like Phil Hawes, which is just the unfortunate reality of the sport. Next up, we have Ricky Simón versus Mario Bautista. I think this is going to be a competitive fight. Now, I am going to pick Ricky Simón because it is a bump up in competition for Mario Bautista, who just had a very close fight with Damon Blackshear. And listen, Blackshear's good. He's a good grappler. He's a big, strong bantamweight, but he took that on short notice. He fought the week prior, 2 weight cuts back to back, and that was a razor close fight. And it's just not the same level of competition as Ricky Simón, who's been able to go out there and test someone like Merab Dvalishvili, man. Like Ricky Simón knocking out Jack Shore, getting past Rafael Assunção. Mario Bautista, I don't think he's that great, but he's good enough. He's got the style to make it tough for Ricky Simón to get a win over him. He's going to be a tough out in this one. I think it's going to be a decision. Both guys are good grapplers. Both guys have excellent cardio, but Ricky Simón is just the stronger guy. His wrestling pedigree, a little bit better. He's a more imposing takedown threat in there. He hits harder, and I don't expect him to all of a sudden have no chin, right? Mario Bautista actually has fast hands. He lets his hands go a lot. He has high volume, but I think that it's going to be the power of Ricky Simón that the judges will look at and say, all right, that guy's doing more damage in this fight. We're going to give him the round. And Ricky Simón is going to drive Bautista up against the fence. He's going to hold him there. He'll eventually take him down. He'll get some control time. And again, for Ricky, this is a big drop-off in competition, too. You're going from fighting Song Yudong, that's got some of the nastiest power, some of the best combinations, some of the best boxing in that division, brick wall takedown defense, great grappling. Okay, remember, Song Yudong, he's just starting to show his grappling, and it's looking real good. He shut down Ricky Simón's wrestling for the most part, knocked him out in the later rounds, had a really patient approach. Song Yudong, we know that if he's patient, he's just a nightmare to deal with because you never know when he's going to let his hands go, and when he does, he's so explosive that there's almost nothing you could do about it. Corey Sandhagen talked about how Song Yudong is one of his toughest fights because of that explosiveness, because of his patience. And I just think that Mario Bautista, he's just not as smart of a fighter. He's pretty cut and dry. You know, he's going to move forward, put a lot of pressure on you, let his hands go, and he's going to give you a tough go when it comes to the grappling because he's a good grappler and he's got good cardio. But Ricky Simón, cardio, grappling, that's his MO. All right, he's fought higher levels of competition. This guy's a win over Merab Dvalishvili, dude, which is crazy, man. He technically submitted Merab, which is ridiculous. He's got big power, so I'm going with Ricky Simón. I think Ricky goes out there, and I think he clearly beats Damon Blackshear, okay? I think he would clearly beat him, and everyone that Mario Bautista's finished before, Ricky's finishing them too. So this is going to be a competitive fight. I'm going to go with a decision for Ricky Simón, just edging out the grappling exchanges and landing the more powerful shots on the feet. Let's get on to the next fight. Jim Miller versus Gabriel Benitez. Dude, I'm going with Jim Miller. I'm going with the crafty vet, all right? 4 out of his last 5 wins by finishes, okay? I'm sorry, 4 out of his last 5 fights by finish. Gabriel Benitez, he's chinny. When people put the pressure on him and they let their hands go, he gets knocked the fuck out. But David Onama blew him out of the water in the first minute of their fight, and I expect Jim Miller to do the exact same thing. Miller has a great chin. He's the king of the apex. He's used to fighting at the apex. He has a perfect diet. All right, he's hormone maxing. He's got the cookbook, and that's really helping him in his later years maintain that health, maintain the ability to recover. And I expect Jim Miller to go out there, press Benitez up against the fence, and I think he's going to knock him the fuck out in the first round. And if this guy wants to shoot a takedown, he's going to meet Miller's guillotine, and I think he's going to get guillotined too. So either way, Miller's going out there and finishing this guy. He just went to a decision with Alexander Hernandez, who's better than Gabriel Benitez. I know Hernandez isn't anything special, but Benitez is bottom of the barrel in the lightweight division. All right, bottom of the barrel, knocked out by Billy Quarantillo. I think Miller goes out there and gives Billy Quarantillo a scrap. Probably loses, but still. David Onama, Miller's not getting blown out of the water in the first round. He's just not. He's not getting blown out of the water like that. Benitez has gotten knocked out so many times in his career, and Jim Miller is the king of imposing his will, dude. That's how it is. He's good in the pocket. He's got fast hands. He's like a cannonball these days. I don't know what it is, because this guy back in the day didn't have a lot of power. Now he does. He's going to fight on UFC 300 because he's getting this victory. I'm putting the house on Miller, dude. I'm putting it on Miller. Next up, Manel Kape versus Matheus Nicolau. Big rematch for the co-main event. This is probably a number one contenders fight if Manel Kape gets the victory. The only other number one contenders fight I could see there being is Albazi versus Moreno. But, dude, I'm fucking sick and tired of Moreno getting a title fight after one win after losing the belt. He's never been a dominant champ, ever. All right, he's never defended his belt. If Manel Kape knocks out Matheus Nicolau, which I think he might, and he gets on the mic and he gives us a good moment, which I think he would, you got to give him a title shot, man. I know no one's clamoring to see the rematch between him and Pantoja either, but Manel Kape's a different fighter. The flyweight division is already the division of rematches. People hype up these flyweights. There's like 15 of them. That's the issue with the flyweight division. There's like no one in this division. But Matheus Nicolau is simply not as good as Manel Kape. And I know he beat him the first time, but Manel Kape got taken down in the first round. That hardly ever happens. Every single other takedown he shot got stuffed, denied. Manel Kape's takedown defense is very good. And he proved that he's the better striker. Like, he lost the third round, Manel Kape did, against Matheus Nicolau, not because Matheus Nicolau... I mean, listen, Matheus Nicolau is still a good fighter in the flyweight division, but I really believe Manel Kape was chasing the finish, and he was rushing things big time. And he wasn't fighting the way he normally fights in that third round up until the very last minute where he started picking his shots and he started to dominate again. All right, in the second round, he was making Matheus Nicolau look silly, countering him, wobbling him at times. He's the cleaner striker. He's one of the best counter strikers in the game. Manel Kape's got this really good ability to throw a counter shot, slip off on an angle, counter again. Like, this guy's footwork is ridiculous. His hand speed is ridiculous. And Matheus Nicolau, he's well-rounded, of course, as everyone is in the flyweight division, but he's just a little bit simple and not in the best way. Like, Moreno is a little bit simple in the way that he strikes. He's just a boxer for the most part. He's not like making all these fancy angles, but Moreno's got much quicker hands. He's got better boxing. He's more power. He's a dog. He goes out there and really puts it on his opponents. Matheus Nicolau, a guy that sits on the back foot, circles around the octagon, and I don't know, man. I think Manel Kape's better. I think if these guys start striking and Manel Kape stuffs the takedown, he easily outstrikes him like he did in the second round. And I think he's going to stay disciplined this time. He's going to stay disciplined, okay? Now, you're going to bring up his last fight with Felipe dos Santos and say, well, he's not beating Matheus Nicolau because he just went to a decision against a 23-year-old UFC debutant. Well, as I've said multiple times in this video, these guys that are making their debuts are showing up complete fighters. Felipe dos Santos in 2 years will shit on Matheus Nicolau, all right? He didn't shit. You could say, oh, well, 2 years. He already shat on Manel Kape. No, he didn't. He gave him a tough fight. He still got dropped in that fight. Still got beat every round for the most part. But Felipe dos Santos is a beast. That guy's output is ridiculous, okay? That's the typical shoot box, walk him down style, tons of confidence. Tons of weapons, good shot selection, a long reach. Matheus Nicolau's got these little T-Rex arms for the flyweight division. He's basic, man. He's a basic fighter. I don't think he's winning this one. I don't think he's winning it. Sometimes you look at a guy like Jan Blachowicz, big ugly jabs, big ugly low kicks, as basic as you can get, but Blachowicz is a master at the basics. Matheus Nicolau, he's just okay for the flyweight division. Again, there's like 20 flyweights. There's 20 of them. This guy is replaceable. All right, you put Steven Ersic in his position. He's doing just as well. Really. Okay. Yeah, he knocked out Matt Schnell. Matt Schnell's chinny. All right. I know that it sounds like I'm being biased here, but I don't see anything special in Matheus Nicolau. I really don't. Manel Kape is a special striker. He's got insane hand speed. All right, his counter ability is crazy. His footwork is crazy. His takedown defense is up there. Matheus Nicolau coming off of a knockout loss. He's been KO'd in his career before that as well. And Manel Kape's never been dropped in the UFC. He has a granite chin. So I think Kape's going to win as long as he stays disciplined and he doesn't get ahead of himself and just chase after the finish like he did in the third round, which ultimately led to his demise because he got out of his box. He got out of his bread and butter. I think he should win this fight pretty easily. And maybe by a KO. Maybe he goes out there and knocks this dude out. Anyway, either way, I mean, he wins. He's going to beat Matheus Nicolau. On to the main event, Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. Magomed is going to shit on Johnny Walker, and he's going to knock him out. He's going to beat him. That's the bottom line. Magomed Ankalaev could be the UFC champion right now. He beat Jan Blachowicz. If you don't believe me, watch the fight back, and he outstruck Jan Blachowicz by 10 strikes in the first round. At least 10. He won the last 2 rounds. This guy could be holding a belt. And you're hyping up Johnny Walker because he dances on his way to the walkout? Because Johnny Walker's so entertaining? Last time I checked, dude, Johnny Walker's a little bit more boring to watch these days than Magomed Ankalaev. I get it. His personality, he's got a wholesome personality. And Magomed doesn't have a social media presence, and he's not making any attempts to speak English. Right? But at the same time, he's not that much more boring than Johnny Walker, who ever since he's got KO'd by Corey Anderson, ever since he got KO'd by Jamal Hill, his whole style is just have a clean little kickboxing match where I'm throwing 10 strikes around and that's it. This guy was in front of Anthony Smith, who he had broken by the second round, and he's not able to put any pressure on him. He just sits at range, taps his legs, and that's it. Magomed Ankalaev finished Anthony Smith. And I know, now people were going to say, Anthony Smith got injured. Yeah, because he was fighting Magomed Ankalaev. He got injured because of that. Ankalaev's more elite than this guy. He's faster than this guy. He's got a better fight IQ. You guys are hyping up Johnny Walker too much for beating someone like Anthony Smith by decision. All right, you're hyping him up too much for finishing Ion Cutelaba. He finishes Ion Cutelaba, and all of a sudden he's the best grappler in the division. Cutelaba is half the size of him. He's got no fight IQ. Again, the biggest reason why I'm picking Magomed in this fight is because when I see Walker fight these days, he's a little bit skittish. He wants to sit out there at range and just keep people at bay and have a nice, clean little decision where his opponents aren't able to get to him because he's so much bigger and he's got a crazy reach advantage and he has this imposing ability in the cage, but he's not that clean with his striking, and he's not the same guy that's taking risks and exploding on people and hitting guys with elbows and leaping into the air with flying knees. He leaped into the air with a flying knee against Magomed, but I think that when this guy is just fighting a kickboxing match and he's not super unorthodox and wild, he's a lot less effective. And I think that in a clean kickboxing match, tit-for-tat battle, Magomed Ankalaev is the faster guy. He may not be as hard-hitting. He may not be able to explode in the air with a flying knee and jump through the roof, but he's got faster hands. He's got cleaner punches. He's got a takedown threat. People act like Johnny Walker is incapable of being taken down because he's big. He's got the takedown defense. No, he doesn't. He got beat by Nikita Krylov, and he got taken down over and over again. He got taken down by Ion Cutelaba. He got taken down by Ankalaev. All right? I think it's only a matter of time before he gets a big shot on the chin and he gets knocked out. Let's not forget this guy has no chin, all right? I know Anthony Smith landed a couple of shots and it didn't put him away, but Ankalaev is a much better striker than Anthony Smith. He's sneakier. He can set things up well. He's a crafty southpaw, And I just think he's more elite, dude. Johnny Walker's beating the bottom of the barrel. Ion Cutelaba, who was on the verge of getting cut. Paul Craig, who is one of these fighters that's just... I know Craig beat Ankalaev, but you get my point, bro. Paul Craig on the feet is perfect for Johnny Walker. Perfect for Johnny Walker. All right? I mean, let's look at Ankalaev's record. Let me read you some of these names, and then let me go to Johnny Walker's record, and I'll read you his record. Okay? Finished Anthony Smith. Beat Thiago Santos. Again, everyone has a boring fight with Thiago Santos. Beat Volkan Ozdemir. Beat Nikita Krylov. Beat Ion Cutelaba. Knocked him the fuck out. Knocked out Dalcha Lugiambula. Knocked out Kilton Abreu. Beat Marcin Paracchio. Knocked him out too. Lost to Paul Craig. Okay, whatever. Paul Craig. Let's go to Johnny Walker. Let's look at Walker's recent opponents. All right. And he beat Jan Blachowicz. Again, I don't think that Johnny Walker is standing with Jan Blachowicz. I think he gets chinned. When is the last time this guy has knocked anyone out worth a damn? Tell me. Khalil Roundtree. That's way back in the dinosaur era. What was that? 2017, 2018? Okay, so let's look at this. Ryan Spann. That's the knockout that he got. He got rocked in that fight against low IQ Spann. Rocked in that fight, and he knocked him out with the back of the head shots, dude. Little bit of a dirty win, by the way. Anthony Smith dropped him, but again, he has him as a sitting duck on the feet. Anthony Smith, injured, slow, fat, and out of shape, and you can't put it on him. I'm not saying you got to finish him, but you can't put it on him. Paul Craig, of course, perfect for Johnny Walker, dude. Perfect for Walker at this point. If you can't chin Walker, he's a different fighter. But anyone that's elite can chin him because he has no chin. Ion Cutelaba, low IQ Ion, on the verge of getting cut. Got knocked out by Jamal Hill. Got knocked out by Thiago Santos. Oh, no, not... Oh, fuck. I actually thought... Wait a sec. I actually thought he beat Thiago Santos. Whoa, he lost to Thiago Santos. Whoa. Forgot that. I mean, that fight was boring. He didn't even win. You guys are picking this guy to beat Magomed Ankalaev? Holy shit. Holy shit. I totally forgot that was a loss for him, man. They were throwing like 7 punches around. That just goes to show this guy is terrified of getting knocked out. Terrified. And he lost. Ryan Spann. Okay, lost to Nikita Krylov. Lost to Corey Anderson. Where are the elite wins? Because all I see are losses to the elite fighters. Khalil Roundtree's the one guy. Dude, I can't wait for Ankalaev to beat this guy. And it's not because I have an issue with Johnny Walker. It's that I don't understand the hype. I don't get it. I genuinely get angry when people pick Johnny Walker in this fight. Because I couldn't disagree more. I couldn't disagree more. Ankalaev's faster, dude. He's got the better grappling. He's got the ability to take the fight to the ground. He's a nasty counter striker. He beat Jan Blachowicz. He beat him. Still a good version of Jan. Okay? In my opinion, he had a clearer victory than Alex Pereira had over Jan Blachowicz. Outstruck him in the first round. It's not easy to outstrike Jan Blachowicz. It's just not. Like, how many people are going out there and outstriking this guy on volume? Izzy couldn't do it. You need Pereira to go out there and do it. And some people think that Jan took a round off of Pereira on the feet. And you expect 7 strikes around Johnny Walker to go out there and do this? No, I think Johnny Walker's getting knocked out. Okay? Unless he lands a crazy flying knee, unless he lands some insane jumping tomahawk elbow, which I don't think he's going to do because he's not the same risk taker. I think he's in a little kickboxing match, and I don't think he's a great kickboxer. Okay? Case in point, look at his fights with all the elite fighters. Look at his fight with Corey Anderson. Look at his fight with Thiago Santos. Look at his fight, and that's post-Jones, Thiago Santos. Post the injuries. Jamal Hill. He's not proven that he's that good. You're going from Ion Cutelaba, Paul Craig, Anthony Smith to Magomed, bro. Magomed's been fighting the elite. He's been beating the elite. He's not lost to a single elite fighter. Paul Craig doesn't count, bro. Okay? He doesn't count, dude. You get my point. Anthony Smith. Thiago Santos finished Anthony Smith, by the way. Finished him. Broke him down systematically. All right? Thiago Santos. Everyone has a boring fight, but he beat him. 4 rounds to 1. He beat Thiago. Volkan